The 2024 NFL season for fantasy purposes is over, and so now we have 2025 prospects to think about. In this video, I'm going to show you how I grade prospects, be they quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends, all the little details, the nitty gritty that we need to consider when ranking prospects and evaluating them. And then I'm going to show you for each position the top rated prospect I had from 2024, some better, some worse. And so watch till the end of this video, and you're going to get a good idea as to how I'm going to grade the prospects in the 2025 class. The first position in which we're going to discuss is the quarterback position. So this past season, Caleb Williams was my QB1. If I could go back, would I have changed that to Jayden Daniels? Potentially. Some things are being made easy for Jayden that aren't being made easy for Caleb, so I do think there's a little bit, it's a little bit unfair between the two. But Jayden Daniels has absolutely been balling. But nonetheless, I didn't have Jayden Daniels first, so it's going to be Caleb Williams because that's what I thought at the time. My comparison on the low end was Kyler Murray. His ability to scramble is being reasonably short for being a quarterback, play extension. And then the high-end comparison was shades of Mahomes because the pocket presence is ridiculous. His ability to extend plays in the pocket and then get outside the pocket, make ridiculous throws on the run. There's definitely some Mahomes to him as well. The official grades of all of these little scores put together was an 80.5 out of 100, which might not sound incredible, but for a quarterback, at least with my grading system, that's incredible. So the first thing we're going to look at here is arm talent. That's the ability to throw the ball anywhere you want, anytime you want. There are quarterbacks that have a little bit better of an arm, but he has an absolute missile. The velocity with which he throws is insane. Now, does he need to work on layering the football? Yes, but in terms of arm talent, that is your absolute ability to make any throw on the field anytime you want, and he can make just about any throw. Looking at his short accuracy in college, and I would argue in the NFL, his short accuracy is awesome. He uses different arm angles depending on where the pass rush is coming from, and so I think that still stands true. His medium accuracy, I thought, was a 9 out of 10 in college. In the pros, I don't think it's quite that good, but you still see some incredible laser accuracy, especially over the intermediate area in the middle of the field. Now, looking at his deep accuracy, I had him at a 6 out of 10. He's way less consistent in the NFL than he was in college. If I had to grade him now, he'd be like a 1 or a 2 out of 10, but not going to retroactively change anything. Now, throwing off platform, that's on the run outside the pocket. 10 out of 10. I wouldn't change that at all. He has, in my opinion, the best throw on the run accuracy in the NFL. The issue for the most part is that the deep accuracy in general has just been so atrocious that defenses aren't scared of him throwing deep. So that's an issue. Looking at speed. Speed is something I consider with quarterbacks. I gave him a 4 out of 5. It was a rough estimate because we just see him pull away from people from time to time in college, but you could just tell that he didn't have that Jayden Daniels elite speed. So I gave him a 4 out of 5. Acceleration, he's a relatively quick accelerator. Scramble intelligence, that's knowing when to scramble, making the most of it, not getting hit. I'd still give him a 5 out of 5. In college, he was incredible, constantly converting fourth downs, third downs. His rushing upside, I gave him a 3 out of 5. This was more so, this is fantasy related especially. This is because he doesn't look to rush. He will if he needs to. If it's, fourth down at the end of a game and he needs to convert it, he will do it. But he typically likes to throw. And so I gave him a median score there because he can do it. And when he needs to, he does. But he doesn't look to do it as often as some of these other guys that would give you more upside. His pre-snap grade, I gave him a 3 out of 5. He does struggle with diagnosing defenses. He did in college, and he still does now. In terms, and especially knowing when he's going to need to throw his hots, that is something he doesn't like to stick to the structure of the offense very often. Looking at his post-snap ability, that is once the ball's snapped, what coverage is the defense in, your ability to quickly process that, and then knowing where you need to go with your reads based on that. And so I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. I do think he's a little bit better after the snap than he is before the snap, but that was definitely one of the biggest weaknesses was his pre and post snap ability. His pocket presence, I gave him a 5 out of 5. He has tremendous pocket presence. He has a really good feel for the where the rush is coming from, whether it be behind him, in front of him. It really doesn't matter. His play extension, he is incredible at avoiding rushers, extending the play. I don't think anyone would really argue with that. His clutch factor. We didn't get to see quite as much of it in college because his defense was so terrible. But from time to time, and constantly in college, he was converting third and fourth downs. And so in the NFL, you can obviously see he's led multiple drives that have either been potential game-winning drives or game-tying drives, even though the defense and coaching and even his own lack of awareness at the end of a game has cost him some of those. You can definitely see the clutch factor there. And so I gave him a 4 out of 5. And that is something that I do value in quarterbacks. Now, the color legend to the right, I should have prefaced with that. Elite is going to be purple. Great is going to be in pink. Good is going to be in yellow. Below average is going to be in orange. And red is going to be poor. And so you can see that I've, besides just grading each one of these factors here, I've also color-coded it for you so you can get a good idea just to how elite, great, good, below average, or poor anyone is at any one of these traits. Now, I also am going to have a worries for each prospect that I do. So my worries for him coming out of college were, will he play in structure? Not can he. We see that he can from time to time, but he just does not want to. And so I think that's absolutely followed him to the pros, unfortunately. And then my second big time worry was, can he read disguised coverages consistently? In college, he was easily fooled, especially that Notre Dame game. And so when defenses are really throwing wild coverages at him, he did struggle against those. I do think he's not quite as quick at processing in the NFL as he should be and needs to be in terms of diagnosing coverages. And so I think that both of these worries have absolutely followed him to the NFL and were valid reasons to worry. Now, in terms of my long-term view of him, I think he's going to be fine if he gets a remotely decent head coach, which isn't a guarantee. But anyways, that is how I came to this valuation of Caleb Williams. And these are all of the individual factors that I'm going to consider with every quarterback prospect. And so now we move on to the running back position. In 2024, my highest graded running back was Trey Benson. Ultimately, I think Bucky Irving definitely deserves consideration for who was the best rookie running back. I was highly scared off by his athleticism, which is why my ranking of him dropped significantly, besides the fact that he was a little bit smaller. Now, for him, he was obviously my running back 1 out of FSU. He's 6 foot 216. That is a 29.3 BMI, so a little bit below the threshold that we typically desire. And so that was a little bit of a knock too. My valuation of him was that he was a top 75 pick. My low comp for him was Isaiah Pacheco with more passing game prowess. He's a very aggressive runner, has a nasty stiff arm, is looking for contact. And so that's where the Pacheco comp came in. My high-end comp was Breece Hall light. He's so smooth when he runs. He's vicious, powerful. And just like with Breece Hall, it's like when he gets going, he doesn't have a maximum speed. He just gets faster and faster as he goes down the field. And so those are things that I saw with Breece Hall. And comparatively, in terms of their athleticism, they are quite similar. Their 40-yard dash time and their size in general is quite similar. And so those are where the comps came in. My official grade with all these little factors put together was 73 out of 100. And so that's a good prospect, but not great. Like everybody said, the running back class here really just wasn't the best this season. Now, things I look for in running backs and how I grade them, I look at contact balance, physicality, vision, ball security, and run IQ. With contact balance, that's obviously your ability, once you break tackles, to stay upright, continue running, so on and so forth. His physicality, that's, do you look to seek contact? Are you physical? Does it work for you? Can you power through people? And so in terms of his contact balance and physicality, I gave him 4 out of 5. I've seen better, but he was pretty good at it. His vision, I gave him a 3 out of 5. He really does struggle at times to find the lane. I did see that much more often, especially as a rookie this season at the beginning half of the season. But towards the middle to latter half of the season, he really did show a lot of improvement there. His ball security, he hardly ever fumbled, so I did give him a 5 out of 5. Ball security is incredibly important. If you are fumbling at the NFL level, you are going to be benched, and unless you are a truly elite superstar, it's just not going to work out for you. So that's incredibly important. His run IQ, I gave him a 3 out of 5. That's the knowing when to bounce it outside, when to just take what you're given. With him, one of his biggest struggles, as you see in the worries below, was will he stop bouncing runs outside so often? So that was a valid concern. Looking at his speed, I give him an 8.5 out of 10. I do think there are faster players, but he does have that trait where he just gets faster and faster as he goes along. And you're typically not going to catch him from behind, but it did happen a couple times in college. His acceleration, it's pretty good. He isn't the elite accelerator, but it's relatively good, especially for his size. And once he does get going, he gets going really quickly. It's just not the initial get off like you would see with some of these smaller backs. His deceleration, I gave him a 3 out of 5. With him being a little bit bulkier and a little bit more top heavy, he doesn't decelerate quite as well as you would want at times. And that hurts his agility, which, as you can see, is a 3 out of 5. And his change of direction is also a 3 out of 5. He's more of the linear athlete than the bounce around, make you miss, juke you out type of player, which, as you can see, is listed in his physicality and contact balance. Now, in terms of his catching, I gave him a 4 out of 5. I've seen him run wheel routes where he has to catch over the shoulder. He has relatively soft hands. His route running, I give him a 3 out of 5. He can run wheel routes, angles, but you won't see him in the slot or anything. So he's not going to have, like a Bijan Robinson type of grade where he could do that, and you did see that in college. His run after catch, I give him a 3 out of 5. He's fine. He isn't the, as soon as he catches it, he's immediately just like he is running the ball type of pass catcher at running back position. So average grade there. That's pretty important though. Pass protection, I give him a 4 out of 5. He's relatively good in pass protection. That's just like with ball security. That is a must if you're going to be a 3-down back, unless you are just truly an elite receiver. And so he's relatively good there. Now, dog factor. That is something I give for running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. So with the dog factor, that's how aggressive are you? How physical are you? How willing are you to do whatever it takes to get the job done? I give him an 8 out of 10. I really don't see too many inconsistencies there. He's a relatively aggressive player, in my opinion. But there are some players that I would just give a higher dog rating. But your love for the game and how willing you are to get the job done absolutely plays a factor here. And that's something I really like to see out of prospects. Looking at his analytics, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. And so his freshman season was completely derailed by injury. Then he had a pretty good sophomore season in which he set a 10-year record for PFF's elusiveness ranking. His junior was a little bit worse, in my opinion, although his touchdowns were fine. And so it wasn't the elite prospect profile. He wasn't getting the bell cow usage. And so I gave him a little bit north of 3 out of 5 because coming off a knee injury to immediately have a fantastic season is pretty rare. And then my projected draft capital, I gave him a 3 out of 5. That's going to be in general your third round. 4 out of 5 would be second round, and then first round would be 5 out of 5, and so on and so forth with the lower scores. And so all these factors put together are how I grade running backs. And so now we move on to wide receivers. My wide receiver 1 this past season was Malik Nabers out of LSU. So he was 6 foot, 199, and a true junior out of LSU. My evaluation of him was that he was worthy of a top 5 pick. My low-end comp was Garrett Wilson before the catch and DJ Moore afterwards. And so Garrett Wilson's kind of wild stallion style of route running, and then DJ Moore's ability to work in open space, use blockers, very shifty. And my high-end comp for him was a mixture of Antonio Brown and Jamar Chase. And so with Jamar Chase, it was the ridiculous burst, the vertical ability, but he was a little bit more bursty than Chase, but not quite as dominant at the catch point. And the Antonio Brown part of it was his ability to accelerate while changing directions. That is a truly rare trait. And if you see that in a wide receiver, that is something you need to invest in. And so my official grade was a 91.5 out of 100. That's an incredible score, and it was the highest of anyone that I graded in the 24 class, obviously, if he's my wide receiver 1. So now we move on to short route running, medium route running, deep route running, double moves, and releases. With his short route running, the footwork wasn't quite as good as I would like to see. His medium route running, same thing, but it was a little bit better than his short route running. With deep routes, the separation was ridiculous. And with his double moves especially, see, there was this one rep, for instance, with the double moves, where he pretended to do what a raw and new receiver would do, where he was intending to run a stutter go. And so he rose up on it before starting to decelerate for a second, which is a trigger mechanism for the cornerback to bite on. And then he bursted past the cornerback. And so the little tricks like that were in play for his double moves. Now, his releases, I gave him a 3 out of 5. Same thing with Brian Thomas Jr. They teach the speed shoulder dip release as opposed to hand fighting. And so it wasn't per se that he couldn't do it. I really didn't know, honestly. If they don't ever do it, it's really hard to tell if they can. And so that was not per se a knock because I couldn't see him do it, like I said, more so that they just didn't do it. And so I do value all of these things. Now, one thing I really value is athleticism with wide receivers because that is where the max upside comes in. In terms of his raw speed, I gave him an 8 out of 10. I think that somebody like, say, Brian Thomas, once they really get going, is a little bit faster with their long speed because they have longer strides. But he was still very, very fast, and he can pull away. We've seen multiple times this season where he's done so. Looking at his acceleration, his burst is insane. He gets going quickly. He's like a Ferrari. It is rare acceleration, only rivaled in terms of talented wide receivers, potentially by players like Jamar Chase. His deceleration, his ability to snap down is a perfect 5 out of 5. It is ridiculous. It creates so much separation on those curls. His agility and his change of direction, you can absolutely see it in his run after catch ability. He's swerving around people, bursting past people, juking people out. It's incredibly hard to tackle him. His catching, I gave him a 4 out of 5. He did have some concentration drops, but overall, he's a relatively good catcher of the football. Looking at his catch in traffic, I gave him a 3.5 out of 5. We did see with some of the more physical cornerbacks in which he faced that they did give him a little bit of trouble at the catch point. And so he's still an above average player at that, but given his frame, 6 foot 199, he doesn't have the benefit that say someone like Rome Odunze or Marvin Harrison do by being about 6'3". His run after catch, 5 out of 5. There's a reason I gave him the DJ Moore comparison for his low end comp. Yeah. Now, dog factor, I gave him a straight 5 out of 5. He is an incredibly menacing player. He's vicious. He is looking for contact. He is trying to figure out how he can score anytime he touches the football. And he demands the ball because he is the best. And so that is what a dog is. In terms of his analytics, we saw that he had over 400 yards as a true freshman. That's generally a good freshman season, 300 to 400. Then we saw a little bit north of 1,000 yards in his sophomore season. And so we see the progressive growth. And then in his junior season, he went up to over 1,500 yards with 14 touchdowns. And so you see the steady rise in production. All the advanced stats in terms of his yards per out run and obviously his separation were massively in his favor. And so that's how you get a 10 out of 10 in the analytics portion, which is very important and why I give it 10 points as opposed to some of the 5s for these other factors. His projected draft capital, it was commonly known that he was a top 10 pick. I think the Chargers could have gone with him, but I do think they made the right choice with Alt because they were able to get McConkey later. But yeah, being a top third of the first round pick, you're going to get a 5 out of 5 there. And so his X, Z, and slot ability, that's his positional versatility. He can run anywhere on the field. It doesn't matter where you put him. He can do it. And so that's how you get a 5 out of 5. If you're more of a limited player or you're just fine at some things, but you're just elite at maybe 2 out of the 3, that's how you get a little bit of a lower score. Or if you're a one-dimensional X only or a slot only, that's how you get a really low score. And so all of these factors are what I consider in terms of ranking wide receivers. And so one of my biggest worries, like I said, which is the reason I gave him the lowest score out of all of these on the releases, is can he use his hands consistently at the line of scrimmage versus press coverage? We didn't really see it too often. He really just did the shoulder dip speed release for the most part. That's what LSU teaches. And so that was my biggest concern. And if that's my biggest concern, that's how you get a 91.5 out of 100. And so now we have tight ends. My tight end one, obviously, was Brock Bowers, to nobody's surprise. So he was 6'3", 243 pounds. It was a true junior. My evaluation of him was that he's worthy of a top 10 pick. My low-end comparison was Michael Mayer on roids. And so what I mean by that is, so he has this ability to, when he's breaking, he's able to keep the speed in which he's running. Sometimes players have to decelerate when they're turning. And so that is one thing. Also very physical as a run blocker. But like I said, Michael Mayer on roids. Now, my high-end comp was a more athletic Trey McBride because I do think he's more athletic. A vertical threat that's a good blocker as well, has that same skill in terms of when you're turning and changing directions with your route running, uh, and a very reliable short area target as well. My official grade for him was a 90 out of 100. In terms of his short and medium route running, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. He's adept at the shallow cross, the slant, anything you want, really. Deep routes, I didn't really see too many complex routes, deep routes. And his vertical separation is good, but there are people that are fast enough to hang with him deep. And so that's where the 4 out of 5 score goes there. But that's still incredible. And he still is an incredible deep threat, even at the NFL level. His football IQ, 5 out of 5. He knows how to work leverages. He knows how to find open space, sit in the soft spots and zone. And so that's where your football IQ comes in. Now, in terms of his speed, I estimated he's probably a low 4.5s, high 4.4s type of speed, which is really good for a tight end. There are players like Evan Ingram, though, that are faster, but that's still incredible. His acceleration, he's rather bursty for a tight end, especially. His deceleration, I'd give him a 4 out of 5. He's a relatively good decelerator, but there are some tight ends that have more snap. In terms of his agility and change of direction, for a tight end, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. You see the banana routes where he fakes the crosser and then turns for a corner route. You can see he runs those flawlessly with perfect footwork. So that necessitates agility and change of direction to even be able to run that route, let alone run it at an elite level. In terms of his catching, I give him a 4 out of 5. He does suffer from concentration drops like most people do. His catching traffic, there are times where he isn't the best in contested catch situations where he can get the ball knocked out. But once again, basically everything was a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 in either great or elite here. His run after catch, he breaks tackles with the best of them. He was the best run after catch tight end I've probably seen at the collegiate level, even as a freshman. His dog factor, straight 5 out of 5. He's just truly dominant. He earned targets at a high level, and for a tight end in college, that is extremely rare. Trey McBride, actually, one of my comparisons for him was a tight end that was the focal point of his own offense, but typically that's unheard of, even if you're a relatively good tight end. His analytics, 10 out of 10. He jumped out of the scene. He had 13 touchdowns as a true freshman. That never happens. Even players like Kyle Pitts, who I loved coming out of college, didn't really have that blow-up season until they were a junior. And so for Brock Bowers to come in right away as a true freshman and dominate each and every year, despite the fact that he did deal with a little bit of injury, was incredibly impressive. Looking at his projected draft capital, 5 out of 5. We all knew he was going to be a first-round pick. I did think he was potentially going to go closer to pick 10 than where he went in the draft, but still, that was great draft capital. His positional versatility, 5 out of 5. He can be used as an inline tight end, an H-back, a fullback, a slot receiver, an X, a flanker even sometimes. It really doesn't matter. He has true positional versatility. My worries with him, will he be the focal point of an offense long-term? That might sound crazy, but we've seen it with players like Laporta. Now, Jameson Williams comes into play there, but with the Falcons, he was incredible his rookie year. Then they drafted Drake London. And so while it sounds crazy to think that he might not be the focal point of an offense, understand that with tight ends, for whatever reason, even with some of these elite guys, you just sometimes are not going to be the first option. And so all of these factors are how I came to an elite score of 90 out of 100 for Brock Bowers. That is the best grade I'll probably give a tight end in quite some time. And so that's how I grade quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I will say the 2024 draft class, while some people will say it's just being overhyped, I don't think so. To have 6 first-round quarterbacks, the running back position was relatively weak. Bucky ended up being good, Tyrone Tracy too. Some of the running backs like Jalen Wright, Trey Benson just really didn't get the opportunity to succeed. The wide receivers are going to go down as this is just a legendary class, and Brock Bowers is the best tight end prospect I've scouted and seen ever. And so future classes might not look like this, obviously, but there are great players in the 2025 class, and I'm going to be breaking down a ton of them. Now, you won't see film on these breakdowns because I don't have access to all 22, and so there's nothing I can do in terms of that, but I'm going to highlight all of their skills, and then more importantly, how it's going to translate to fantasy football and why I'm going to rank certain prospects over others. And one more thing, I recently launched a Patreon. So if you want to become a member there, you're going to get content earlier than you'll see on YouTube. You're going to have access to members only live streams where we go over whatever you want to talk about. I'll bring topics up for discussion, answer your questions. And if you are in the Hall of Fame tier, you're going to also have access to a private Discord where I'll rank your fantasy teams, suggest trades for you based on your specific league settings and the like, as well as discuss any potential just real life football questions you might have, or just have a good discussion. So if you want to become a member, feel free to become one. Anyways, I hope you have a good day. Thanks.